Hi everybody, thanks for watching my videos as always. I'm trying to get more on the ball here and get some more videos out so you guys don't think I've dropped off the face of the planet. I love it when you guys comment on my videos, even when you have nasty things to say to me. It's okay. It's all love from my end. I understand everybody's gonna get hated on every now and then. And for all of those of you who enjoy my videos and support me, all the love in the world goes out to you from here. So today I want to do another video on the King's Indian because I think that it's the most, like I said before, one of the richest openings in chess. Actually, it's positional, tactical, aggressive, yet solid and exciting, and it's just, you never know what you're going to get, and you can play it against almost anything that isn't e4, actually. And so against that dreaded Cole I've talked about before, you can play the King's Indian and kind of hope for something. When you're dealing with the King's Indian, one of the most common lines you're going to see, and one of the most difficult lines to play against, actually, is the same-ish variation. And what on earth is that? Let's find out. So, d4, knight f6, c4, g6 are standard moves in the King's Indian. If you're unfamiliar with them, please watch my other video on it, and you'll be up to speed. Knight c3, preparing e4, bishop g7, e4, d6, and here f3, the same-ish variation. Okay, why on earth did he play this? Well, White here is saying, ha ha ha, you think you're going to get a kingside attack on me. I'm going to flip the script, and I'm going to get a kingside attack on you, actually. And so White saying, I can beat you at your own game. And the h3 system, 5h3, has a similar approach to it. So Black needs to be very cautious, and usually this standard kingside attack is just going to fail miserably here, barring some special circumstances. So really, White is locked down the center in such a way as to, and since White is many times going to castle queenside, he can just fling those pawns forward at our king, and it's can get really dangerous. So not fun for us King's Indian players. And let me go off on a rant real quick, as I love to do. Even if you're not a King's Indian player, it's important that you have another opening in your back pocket. And the reason I say that is if you play in tournaments a lot, and even if you don't, but especially if you do, you need to realize that one opening Charlie, someone who just has one opening that they play is Black against d4, and that's what they do, and that's their thing, and then they do it. You put yourself at somewhat of a disadvantage, A, because you're predictable, and you're going to play the same people more than one time. The U.S. Chess Federation is big, but it's not that big. I mean, once you reach, especially into the 2000 plus, you're going to see a lot of the same opponents over and over again. And what's the deal about that? Well, a lot of times, say you're a Nimzo player, you play the Nimzo Indian, you love it, it's your thing. That's fine. And the Nimzo's a great opening. But what if you play somebody who plays this line? There's always going to be that line that you hate. You just hate playing against it. What if they play it every time against you, and you never get anything, and you're getting poor results? You need to have something in your back pocket, a different opening that you're familiar with, where you can pull it out at any moment as a shock factor, when you know somebody's going to play some variation that you despise. And a lot of times, if you're a keen player, even if you've never played the person before, if you walk around the tournament hall enough and kind of get an idea, usually you can guess. You start learning the type of style of everybody there. And when you play them, you already should know. That's called reconnaissance. So I suggest you start maybe thinking about that a little bit. Don't stress about it, but it's something to do, something to think about during a tournament, kind of gauging your competition. Sometimes there's too many people there, as in the World Open. You have enough trouble figuring out where you are and where your board is. before you can start figuring out where anybody else is at. Half the time, I've gotten lost so many times at tournaments, I don't even know where I was sitting, and I'm ended up wandering around like a chicken with my head cut off, just trying to find out where I was at. So that's a side note. But anyway, back to what we're talking about here. Pardon that little detour. What do we do against this? Well, what's the main line? What do most people do here? Well, most people castle, and that's a good idea. And White's playing bishop e3 here. The main reason being it's a good place for the bishop, first of all. And second of all, he can then play queen d2. He can castle long. He has the option to bring this bishop to h6 at any moment he chooses. And he's got this strong center. It should be noted that the downside, this is not all roses for White here. The downside to this same-ish variation with f3 is that the knight is going to have trouble getting anywhere useful. It's going to take a couple moves, and the bishop, or the light square bishop, is going to be boxed in and is going to be technically bad for most of the game. So it's not all advantageous for White to play this variation. It's all a matter of preference. And so before we get to what I want to recommend, let's look at what sort of like the principal move. This is like the golden standard move against the same-ish, and anybody who's everybody with any kind of pride should play this move, or at least it used to be this way, that c5 was the move here. And it's incredibly interesting move. It's a gambit, even though it's not called that. And let's look at one of the common choices where White chooses to win a pawn here at d takes c5, d takes c, queen d8, rook d8, bishop takes c5. The move here is knight c6, protecting the pawn, knight d5, attacking it, and knight d7. I'm not going to explain that move and why, because I don't want to waste time. Bishop takes e7. I'm not explaining that one. Knight takes e7. King. Okay. Knight d5. This, for me to explain just this opening, would take 2 videos. So there's no sense in me even making an effort. If you're interested in it, I suggest you look into it, because surprisingly enough, White's going to end up being up a pawn within a fantastic center and a fantastic knight, and yet he's going to be the one in danger of losing, actually. White should draw this almost every time, actually, and many times Black should draw this almost every time, and he has absolutely fantastic winning chances, which is beyond counterintuitive. It's an amazing thing that this opening, and many grandmasters refuse to accept that this could be, that Black could be okay here, and Black's fine. Why not then play it, right? Well, 2 reasons. The first reason is that this is extremely theoretical and very easy to get turned around and not know where you're at. And if you have bad memory like me, I can't rely on memorizing these long variations. I have no idea what's going on. Everything starts turning into everything else, and then I get confused. That's reason 1. It's really theoretical. You need to know the theory, because one misstep and you could go from winning to losing. That's one disadvantage. And the other disadvantage is actually White doesn't have to play d takes c5. They can actually play probably the more solid move, and the move most people now will play is knight ge2. And I'm just going to fly through this. This isn't the recommendation. Knight c6, d5, knight e5, knight g3, getting the knight somewhere useful, e6, cracking away at the center, bishop e2, ed, cd, a6, a4, h5, castles, knight h7, queen d2, h4, knight h1, f5, knight f2. And I don't want any part of this. This is bizarre. It's not clear where Black should play. It's not clear what's going on. And it's not clear why anybody would go in for something this bizarre when here White looks to be okay. That doesn't seem like there's like a crashing kingside attack. White's got a lot of pieces over there, and Black's king is pretty exposed too. And it's I don't like playing openings where I don't know what's going on half the time, and that's, I'll leave that to the Sicilian players, you know. All right, there's my, yeah. I'll get a negative comment about that one, I'm sure. But I was just joking. So don't like send me hate mail or anything. So, all right. Well, what am I recommending? I'm recommending the absolutely spectacular move 6A6. Da-da! It's amazing. But really, this move has so much sting to it, and this variation that I'm going to recommend has so much sting to it that I think the Samish goes from being one of the best and most dangerous choices for white to really just being kind of okay. It's no longer spectacular. It's no longer like really terrifying because A6 just shuts it down. Why might you think that? What's so fantastic about A6? Sure doesn't look spectacular, right? I'm sure y'all are like, is this a joke? But it's not that A6 itself is spectacular. It's really not. It's just what A6 is preparing. And what we're going to learn about this is what this move does is it turns this terrible Samish variation of the King's Indian into a spectacular Benko gambit for black. And if you know what the Benko gambit is, and please bear with me, and I'm just going to fly through it for those who don't know what it is. So don't just cut out on me here. Just bear with me. The Benko, considered by most to be the most solid and the only truly fundamentally correct gambit besides the Queen's Gambit, of course. So fundamentally sound gambit for black. This is the only one actually that really has the approval of essentially everybody and is played by the best players in the world. D4, knight f6, this is how it goes. C4, and instead of g6, c5 right away. D5, b5. Here's the gambit, welcoming white to take on b5. The similarity between these two opens is illustrated when white takes this pawn. C takes b, and we offer up another pawn, a6. And let's say white takes it, ba, bishop takes a6, knight c3, d6, knight f3, g6, g3, bishop g6, bishop g2, castle, castle, knight d7, rook e1, queen a5, e4. So what's going on here? The main idea here is that black is going to bring this rook here at some point, and there's going to be huge pressure along this file, and coupled with this bishop down the diagonal and these wonderful knights, this bishop is a little in the way for right now, but it's no big deal. The idea here is that yes, black is a pawn down, but it's actually irrelevant. And another unusual thing about this gambit is that black really will welcome a queen exchange. It doesn't take away from the black game to trade queens. That's how sound this gambit is. I hope I'm not selling it better than the King's Indian. I still think the King's Indian is a better opening because it's more versatile towards absolutely everything. But the Benko is a powerful opening. And so even if black trades queens with white, he still has winning chances actually, being a pawn down. And so this is just like your normal Benko, and what we're going to get is actually a fantasy bingo, if you Benko, I'm sorry, if you want to call it that. If you've ever heard of the fantasy variation of the Caro-Kann, I'm going to do a video on that actually. But this is like the fantasy variation of the King's Indian, if you want to think of it that way. Don't call it that to anybody because they'll look at you like you're crazy because I just made that name up. But that's sort of what's going on. Bishop e3, a6. Okay, this is the amazing move. Wow, a6. Okay, and if this, I'd say this is a very uncommon move, and only like the more up in the theory players will have seen this. People who are good on their theory will be familiar with this move. It's not a secret move or anything. So a6, this move was recommended by several top players actually, and has been played by Morozevich and Balogan. And if it's played by Morozevich, you can guarantee it's Usually he plays the absolute craziest thing possible, but in this case he's being sensible and playing an opening that's reasonable. So queen d2, okay, this is okay. This makes sense. We're possibly going to castle queen side if we decide to. In this variation, they will not decide to, actually. And but mainly we're also reserving the right to play bishop h6 at some point and trade off the dark squared bishop. So that's kind of like the thing going on there. Knight bd7, getting the knight where it needs to be. Knight h3. This is standard for the same-ish where else to put the knight rather than block in the bishop on c1. So knight h3, the idea he's going to come back to f2 eventually, probably next move or so. And here we go, c5. White has some other options, but the main move here is d5, and it's the move that makes the most sense. Because white still has this idea of creating kingside play. So why on earth would he open up the center by playing d takes c when he wants to play a kingside attack? That makes no sense. So that's just some little strategy thing there. It's not like he couldn't play it, but it's kind of like not in keeping with the strategy. You want to keep the center under control and closed when you're doing these wing attacks. So b5, here's where we start to see a similar thing to the Benko. cb, and now we play queen a5. We want to take. We want him to take on a6 so that we can play bishop takes a6. We're not interested in keeping the pawn. We're not interested in protecting it. We want to recapture the pawn on a6 on our own terms, actually. And so white plays knight f2. Usually white isn't rushing to take to take on a6. Usually you have to kind of coerce them to do it, and because they understand the potency of what this is. So we've sacrificed a pawn. White's played knight f2, and knight b6 happens with some ideas here, possible options in the future. So bishop e2, knight f d7, opening up the bishop, and now we're starting to see some options coming in for black. It's starting to become more clear that he's got some activity, at least for this pawn. Now knight f d1 is played. This is just realizing the dangers of this attack on c3, and so it's a little bit of a passive move. And I think at this point we're following a game that you can reference. So Xenia against Istratescu, a 25-35 versus 25-40. Where of course games where there's sort of a rating discrepancy, a lot of times really clearly illustrates the tactical and strategic ideas of an opening better than two players who really know what they're doing. So knight e5 is played here. The idea, of course, now we're really threatening to come in and start and sort of fork these two pieces, and that's the last thing white wants. So he plays b3, but that's fine. That's now really opened up our diagonal. So a takes b5, bishop takes b5, bishop a6. We've waited long enough. We need to get some development going. And again, the idea here is going to be to eventually get the rook here, and we're going to be barreling down on these two pawns. And this game that I'm going to show you is a beautiful how it illustrates the queen exchange that I talked about earlier, and the fact that black is a pawn down, and yet black wins the game convincingly. So mainly due to white's inexperience in the endgame, I'll grant that, but it doesn't change the facts. So bishop a6, bishop goes back to e2, kind of like a move. I don't know how necessary that was. I mean, he wants to be able to castle, so I guess that makes sense, right? So bishop takes e2, queen takes e2, knight ec4, threatening that capture on c3. White obliges him with b takes c4, bishop takes c3, knight takes c3, queen takes c3, and king f2. So already, you know, in this situation, black has got some pretty nasty threats going on, but it's not clear that he's in real danger, or that white's in real danger. Knight takes c4, so we've won back a pawn, basically. But we're still... We're essentially even material now. Rook h(c1), hitting the queen. So it looks like the queen's going to lose. I mean, black's going to lose the knight, but it's not so. So king takes. So now we've got an even pawn structure. I'm sorry, even number of pawns. The problem is that this pressure that black generates against the a2 pawn is going to prove to be his demise, actually. So after rook a3 check, king d2, rook a f8, rook c2, king g7, king e2, king f6, king f2, king e5, rook d2, g5, king g3, h5, rook b1, acknowledging that there's no way he can stay there forever. It's a matter of time before black comes plowing through with a move like moving the pawn. Okay, that's easy enough. So rook b1, rook takes, rook b7, and really white's in trouble here. King f6, rook c7, rook c2, rook c6, h4 check, king h3, rook e2. This is an endgame. There's no sense in like dwelling on it for a long time. Rook d2, g3, hg, hg, e6. Just trying to get some pawns together so you can start pushing them down the board. Rook d7, king e5, rook e7, c4, king g4, c3, rook c7, c2, d takes e6, f takes e6, king g5, d5, ed, ed, f4 check, king d6, exclam, rook c8, d4, f5, d3, f6, rook f2, rook c3, king e5, threatening the pawn. The rook cannot take because of queen. Rook c5 check, king d4, rook c7, resign. Black wins. Here you can see that in the position where we saw here, let's see. In this, we go from this classical c5 Nimzo, where we get this type of position, or the d takes c5 Nimzo, where we get this position. And when with our system, we get something reminiscent of, say, let's kind of pick like the base position, this type of a position. And it's much clearer what's happening. It's much less scattered. We don't have a very intimidating knight on d5. We don't have pawns in all directions and all kinds of scattered pieces everywhere. It's much clearer what we want to do. And my philosophy when it comes to openings is pick an opening where you have the clear idea. You're never gonna. You're always going to be, I guess, somewhat surprised, but you're never going to be blown away, and you're going to always have an idea of what you're aiming for. And so with this opening, we know what we're aiming for. We're aiming to get the queen onto a5, trade off this light squared bishop, sacrifice a pawn, get the rook over to b8 and a8, pressure these two pawns, hopefully win both of them. Freely trade queens. The knights have easy time getting to good squares. We don't have to worry about so much the king side attacks because we've got too much pressure over on the queen side. So that's sort of like my spin on the same-ish, and maybe I'll do another video using this variation if there's a good response to this one. So I hope that maybe you found this important and respect the a6 move here. And if you're a d4 player and you play this line, you better really reassess what you think of this move, because you might would have laughed a little bit at it before, but the only person who's going to be laughing is the other player if you're not careful. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and maybe I'll put some more up soon if I don't get overwhelmed with life and everything else. So all right, thanks for listening, watching. Bye.